Welcome back to Seriously Funny. I'm your host, Mashnor Kabir, and I eat French fries. This week we are going to talk about how to be more likable, something that all of you need because you suck. So, what I just did there makes me very not likable. So, I'm going to go off the script right at the beginning. And before we get into the fundamental things about that you need to know to be more likable, I want to first just hit on some general good to have traits. All right, because these are just important. I completely forgot to write about them. This is all about how to make it so that you are capable of being a more likable person over time. I'm just going to give you some general traits here. Number 1, punctuality. Okay? Be punctual. That's the first one. And there's a story behind that one. We'll talk about that at the end of the podcast if I remember, or we'll probably save it for the next episode when I talk about whatever I talk about next week. Punctuality, we got that down. Great. Awesome. Then we got general, don't be an a-hole. I think that's important. I think a lot of us miss that, and I need to go clean my glasses because man, is the light's not liking that 1 minute. I want to tell myself that looks better because if I don't tell myself that, then I just wasted those like 2 minutes. Now, be kind, honestly, never mind. That one, you can be a jerk and people can still like you. It just depends on what flavor of jerk you are. I have some jerky over there in my closet now. I was like, you know what? I want beef jerky. That feels like a great idea. So I bought beef jerky. Anyway, the next one, be clear, speak clearly. And I don't mean that with the thing we talked about a couple weeks ago. I don't mean don't stutter ever, don't say ever. It's fine, whatever. We all stutter, we all say like whatever. That happens. All right, no one cares. Generally, it's really cool if you don't do that, but if you do that, I just didn't want to say do that. If you do that, then it's like, okay, most people won't mind unless it's real bad, or if they are like me and they study speech, in which case they notice that in people. But what I mean though by speak clearly is when someone asks you for an opinion, do not say I don't know. When someone says something, asks you something, you don't say I guess, I think. No, give an answer. Speak clearly. Yes, no, maybe. Here's my reason. I'm not sure. Here's why. Like, it's just not like if someone asks you a question and you just give them like a non-answer answer, that's so aggravating. I think for everyone, I feel like that's a universal dislike from everyone. Don't do that. Speak clearly. Just yeah, and if you do want to learn how to speak better, no uhs, ums, or likes, then go watch that episode a couple weeks ago. How to speak better, great episode, or so I've been told at least. What I just did there earlier in the script, I had a joke, but I ruined the joke because I added those like 2 little bullet points there about 2 things there: punctuality and speak clearly. Those are just 2 I want to throw out there. There's probably some other general traits that I can't recall right now. Again, I didn't put in my script. I just came up with those. Probably a lot of cuts because there's a lot of white space there. At the beginning of the episode, I said something you all need because you all suck. And then I said, so what I did there makes me not very likable. And that right there was the first point, self-awareness. I knew what I said at the beginning of the episode would not be a very likable statement. I actually had that issue recently. I had someone get really mad at me because I made an inflammatory comment and didn't get to explain myself, and they weren't very happy. We'll just leave it there. So self-awareness, this is probably the biggest component to becoming a better liked. Self-awareness makes it so that at the very least, you are capable or able to understand why you are the way you are, and if you so wish, you can then change it. Because as we've said before on this podcast, good diagnosis precedes good treatment. A very common statement and common rule that they learn in medicine, med school, doctors, you need a good diagnosis. And a lot of times that's why you'll get so many diagnoses. But that's a different issue. You cannot change if you do not recognize what needs to be changed. You cannot help someone if you don't know what's wrong. You don't know where to look. What are you going to do? Shotgun method? Like, that's not a great idea. And this shotgun method is in a hospital. You have a patient that comes in with an issue, but you don't know the source of the issue. So if they have the money, you may just run every single test that you can possibly test. CAT scan, MRI scan, all of the scans, all of the OPSIs, all of them, just everything to see what the cause is. Again, that's incredibly expensive here in America, and it's just not a good idea because those tests can Like, being healthy is the best option to be healthy, okay? So doing those scans they're not going to mess with you per se. Some of them might. Some of them may be a bit more intrusive, but some of those things that they need to look inside your body are going to be more intrusive, meaning they have to go into you, which is not something we want to do generally if we don't need to. That's why the doctor asks you a bunch of questions, feels around for things before they do anything. This podcast talks about self-awareness a ton, right? Self-awareness is how we can figure out anything. Also, my friend said, I was writing the script while my friend was in front of me, and they said to put your chin up, stick your chest out, and straighten your back. So that may help as well to be more likable. Is this the same friend that doesn't open up? Yes, it is. And I showed him the clip, and he laughed. So screw you, man. But back to self-awareness. Being self-aware is an incredibly integral part of your life. Regardless of what habit you want to build, the first step in anything, at least in terms of the self, of course, yes, meditation. This is the way to become better self-aware. There's a cool third eye meditation that for the self, and self-awareness, but there are many exploratory meditation techniques that you can use to find or you can use to help you look within yourself. Or heck, honestly, if you don't want to meditate, you can just go ahead and do nothing for an hour. Like, you can sit on a couch, on the floor, on a chair, or on a goddamn tree branch, I don't know, and you can do nothing. You just do nothing. Simply sit there, sit with yourself, sit with your thoughts. That's all. That's all it takes sometimes. Do that like once a week, just sit with yourself. And if meditation seems too hard, then this is another method you could use. However, if you're short on time, then you should just meditate 3 to 5 minutes a couple times a week. A lot shorter. Meditation is great. I'd recommend meditating, but doing nothing for an hour once a week, is better than nothing. Point being, though, is that self-awareness, knowing who you are, is the true key to all of the things that these self-help nerds on the internet tell you. If you go back to episodes where we talk about change, about getting better, or anything of the sort, you know that it usually ends up with me talking about looking at yourself. And the hard part about this isn't simply looking at yourself. That really does just take sitting with yourself, whether that be doing nothing for an hour or meditating. It's not too hard to spend time with yourself and understand yourself. The hard part is doing all of that without any judgment or bias. Most of us are egotistical. We either think we're the greatest thing ever or the worst thing ever. And I have an episode talking about ego and how those two statements, thinking you're the best or the worst, are the same thing. So you can go back a couple weeks where we talk about that if you want to. If you missed that. Anyways, but of course you don't miss any episodes ever. Anyways, when we look at ourselves, generally you will probably look at yourself with some lens. The same lens you used to judge other people, maybe harsher, maybe not. But a lot of times we will have a disproportionate view on our actions and traits, or we begin to feel regret or guilt, or we want to change things when we look within ourselves. We may run away from certain things about ourselves or certain memories of ours or things of that sort. The real key and the real goal with self-awareness isn't looking at yourself in order to find all the flaws and problems and goo and clean it all out. If it were that simple, everyone would be a better person. Unfortunately, we're not just cleaning out a gutter. And God knows that we all got a lot of garbage piled up in there. I eat McDonald's at least once a week. So yeah, I got a lot of garbage in there too. Don't judge me. It's cheap. I'm on campus all day. Okay, it's not my fault. If you want me to stop, then share this podcast and my other channels, and maybe I'll have enough money to eat something healthier, okay? The real key is to observe the self and become aware of yourself without the presence of the ahamkara, or the I feeling, the ego. Ahamkara is Sanskrit for the I feeling, which we will roughly call the ego. The I feeling means I, me, myself. And ego is the self. So their word's a bit cooler. I think I feeling is really interesting because they very explicitly say it's a feeling. It's a thing that doesn't need to be there because there's no self. You don't want to judge your actions or traits as good or bad. You don't want to feel happy or sad when you discover the things about yourself. You simply must discover things about yourself, nothing more. And that's really hard because the ego is your sense of self. In order to observe yourself, you have to separate yourself from your ego. But if the ego is the sense of self, how do you separate yourself from yourself? You're asking some really advanced questions there, aren't you? So let's calm down and go meditate. Yeah, After self-awareness, the next tip we got here on how to be more likable is the topic about caring what people think. The general advice you get on this topic is to not care about what people think. But if this podcast gave general advice, then no one would listen to it, which is kind of the case. So maybe I should be giving more general advice or make more cringe faces on my thumbnails. Who knows? Views are actually up a bit. I went from single digit to getting double digit views. I got 13 views on the last two YouTube podcast episodes. We're making progress out here in the world. Disregarding that audio listens are down. This is depressing. Anyways, caring what people think. I care what you think. That's why you should leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen to this podcast. Back to content. This is a topic that I honestly got inspired to do. This idea of being more likable. After talking to a friend I've recently made, a different friend than the earlier one. They're pretty smart and they're incredibly pretentious, arrogant, and egotistical. At least they sound like it when they talk. There have been many a times I wanted to. Never mind. And if me, Mashnur Kabir, your host, who is probably one of the most egotistical and arrogant people that you've heard, am saying that this dude is pretentious, I really mean it. I, though, am not a man of back-talking, so I once asked this person straight out, would you say you're egotistical, pretentious, and or arrogant, at least in your speech? And they said, no, if someone feels that way, it's on them. I don't care what people think. Which only cemented the whole egotistical thing, didn't it? I mean, I quite literally if someone doesn't like me, it must be their problem. Regardless, I wanted to write this because I want to talk about this idea of not caring what people think. It's an awful, stupid, myopic idea. It's simply not good advice. There you go. There's my thoughts. Here's the thing. I used to not care what people thought. And guess what? I was awful. Awful. I was a very awful human being. Really bad. 0 out of 10 sort of awful. Now, admittedly, the problem here is that it depends. If you have some person and they don't care about what people think for whatever reason, they may, like me, turn out to be awful and really bad. There's a chance there because they don't care about what people think, so they can be as bad as they want, right? That makes sense. The other option is that you have a person, again, who just doesn't care about what people think. And they turn out to be really cool, awesome, kind, and a dope human. And part of what makes them cool is that they don't get mad when people say things about them, since they don't care what people think, but they're still really nice dude or dudette. That could happen. It's a coin flip. Honestly, I can't say one is more likely than the other. It really will depend on a variety of things. It won't even depend on what type of people your parents are. I've seen kids that have really nice parents turn out to be really awful people, and I've seen people with really awful parents turn out to be really nice people. I don't know what factors go into it to make anything happen like that. It's just not consistent. You can't go around telling people not to care what people think, because that could end extremely poorly. The problem here is that it's not consistent. You really can't guess which way it'll go. Therefore, I thought about what we could do. There has to be some sort of thing, because honestly, it's not good for you to hear what people say about you and feel bad about it and start being upset and then get angry at them or something like that. I just really went forward into the camera there. Sorry if you feel threatened there. Don't worry, I'm not going to come through the screen. Not yet. There should be a level of not being affected by what people think. That's not going to be great, right? People are going to insult you in life. It'll happen. You don't want to get upset by that. You want to laugh at it. And in order to laugh at it, you have to not care. I guess you would care a little bit to laugh at it, but because it's funny. That's not good for you, right? So you can't let things get to you. And like we said, feeling bad isn't what we want. We want awareness. And sometimes, no matter how unbiased of a look that we think that we're taking at ourselves, it takes the observation of someone else from the outside to really shove a mirror in our face sometimes. Again, we do a lot of meditation to figure out things about ourselves. If it just took one meditation session, it'd be done. Everyone would just do a meditation one time in their life and they're set. But here's the thing. We do this for years. I've meditated for years, and I still probably don't know everything about myself. Other people sometimes say things about me. I want that input. I want criticism. I want them to insult me. If they genuinely don't like me, I want to hear it. Because honestly, they may bring up a really good point. And we'll talk a little bit later. We'll talk in a second about sometimes it's not a good point. But a lot of times, it's really helpful when someone just is mean to us because they may be right and they may honestly show us something or tell us something about ourselves that we genuinely should think about at the very least. So that's exactly what we should take from them. The message that they're trying to give. Yes, you should not be affected by what people think. That should not happen. Do not be affected by what people think. However, you should indeed care about what people think. It matters. It's important. This is life. It is not a single player game. It is a multiplayer game. There is a word for someone who plays a multiplayer game and doesn't care about what their teammates say or think. It's a League of Legends player, okay? Or a degenerate, whichever one you want to use. Those people aren't great. Like who, imagine that. You just have a dude that doesn't care. You give them input. You give them like kind criticism. And they just don't listen. They don't change. They don't care. You don't want to be around that person at all. They are not likable. They don't listen. They just do whatever they want as it pleases them. And that's not okay. Most 99% of people that live life won't be able to live a life that doesn't involve other people in some way, shape, or form. Life's a multiplayer game. You are a social creature. You have to think about that. You absolutely should consider things people think and say about you. And here's the thing, sometimes someone will just not like you. It happens. And that's fine. You don't need to hate them back. You just don't talk to them out of respect for their not liking you. That's okay. And sometimes there's no reason for them to not like you. It's just a thing. They just see you and you're like, I don't like that guy. I don't know why that would happen, but it may happen. It does happen. Sometimes there's no need. They just don't like you. And in that case, you shouldn't be affected by what they think, right? Whatever. It's okay. And they haven't told you anything of like substance. Like if someone just comes up to you and says, I don't like you. It's like, oh, why? I just don't like you. They haven't told you anything that you can care about. So you're just going to be unaffected and you're probably just going to awkwardly smile or laugh at them. Like, okay, man, that's okay, cool. That's what happens sometimes. Sometimes someone, other times, let's say you have a bunch of friends that drink a lot. Okay. Don't drink. But you, like me, don't drink. You're just a super square dude and you listen to this podcast and you're like, my favorite host, National Kabir, told me not to do the drugs, so I'm not going to do drugs. And they think you're a buzzkill for some reason because you don't do their drugs. For that reason, they don't like you. So they may tell you, oh, it's just you're super square and we don't enjoy that. It makes us feel bad or so. I don't know, whatever. In that case, should you be affected by what they say? Again, no. Should you care? Yeah, I mean, they told you something. You should care. Listen to them. But here's the thing. You listen to them, but that's not something about yourself you want to change. You should consider what they said. I didn't say listen to it. I said consider it, right? So if they say, oh, you're super square, does that mean you just turn into a junkie now? No. You listen and you're like, I can understand why you wouldn't like that, but that's not something I want to change about myself. And then you find new friends. And again, there doesn't need to be hate, animosity, dislike there. You just find people that match your vibe better or like you better. And here's honestly, people that drink, if you don't drink, like it's fine. As long as you're a fun person to be around and you're funny, it doesn't matter. All of my friends, the ones that aren't Muslim, all of my friends they drink, right? So, and they're fine with me. Whatever. They don't care. They know I don't. They know I won't. And it's fine. I think I'm reasonably fun to be around, so it's never going to be the case. Just by the way, that was just a hypothetical that could happen. If someone feels bad because you're not drinking and they have personal problems they need to sort out, okay? That's not your issue. Anyways, I hope all of that makes sense. Don't be affected by what people think, but consider what people say because it could be important. They could be right. And if they're not right, then you respectfully just don't do anything. The final question is, why does any of this matter? Why does being likable matter? You've heard don't care about what people think. you have heard it. And that's, don't care about being more likable. Just be yourself. And to one extent, a little bit, again, don't be affected by other people. Live your life. Maybe it doesn't matter and you shouldn't care. But unless you're a monk, like we said a moment ago, life is a multiplayer game. This episode isn't telling you how to make friends. It's telling you how to be more likable. You're going to have group projects. You are going to have to talk to people at work. You are going to have to interact with people in some way, shape, or form, probably very often in your life. So it's better for everyone if you're more likable. It's better for the people that you're interacting with, and it will be much better for you if people like you. They'll be nicer, they'll give you more leeway, and you'll get stuff from them. Okay, people are more willing to give charity to the people they like. Charity in a mental manner, like if you mess up, they'll be a lot more likely to forgive you if they like you. It's a lot easier to not be affected by how people feel about you when they feel good about you. You know, if enough people hate you, you may start to break down at some point and care. But again, if multiple people hate you, that's probably a signal that you need to look inwards. There may be something actually that you should look into and maybe consider changing. For now, though, this matters because of social gain. Honestly, being likable is just socially really good for you. It helps. It makes people want to help you. It makes people want to be nicer to you. It makes people want to be better towards you. It's just a good idea, honestly. It's a win-win. Like I said, if they like you, they're happy. If they like you, they're more willing to help you with things. Again, win-win. The section here isn't very long about why this matters. It matters because, again, life's a multiplayer game. You are going to have to deal with other people's, and it's just going to be better for everyone if you're likable. I think everyone may need a lesson in being likable. You know, it really is a simple good for everyone sort of ending. I just said that awfully. It really is a simple good for everyone sort of ending. I think everyone could use a lesson on how to be more likable, but to review self-awareness, care what people think, but don't be affected by it, at least emotionally. And if someone tells you bad things about yourself, really consider those things. They may be right. And if they are right, then consider working on those things. And all of that without judgment, of course. That is all, though, for this episode of Seriously Funny. Thank you for listening to this one. As always, my exam dominoes start again next week for 3 weeks, and then I have Thanksgiving break. I still haven't watched anime in a while, but I have been watching the Apple TV show Severance, which is pretty interesting. I can see why so many people have liked it. It's not bad. Still no new like music. There's some singles out there, DC the Dawn, Kid Travis stuff. Singles are always out there, but no new like albums or anything. So by the time this episode is out there may be a new story out, which if it is out, it's probably titled The Girl Who Drank Rain. If it's not out, you will soon see a story titled The Girl Who Drank Rain on the narration channel. So be on the lookout for that if you are up to date with the narrations. I have also recorded a YouTube video, so expect that in a week or two, depending on time and homework. This week, though, I'm in a rush. So if you will excuse me, I will see you next week. Much love, self-awareness. Peace.